Chag Sameach, everybody.
Chag Sameach, everybody, and welcome to our home.
We're so glad you're joining us for this Pesach Seder. You know, most of us are used to having a number of people around the table.
Yep.
Tonight,
just the two of us.
Just the two of us. Some of you are watching alone. Some of you are watching with 2 or 3 people from your family around the table.
Some of you watching in Zoom, sharing the table.
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
Many people at the same time.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to have a very festive Seder tonight, and all of you are going to be participating with us. We're delighted. We're really delighted.
Yes, we are.
Because this is not the new normal. This is the temporary abnormal. We are going to see and experience and enjoy life on the other side of this modern-day plague of COVID-19. We're going to celebrate tonight, and we're going to remember that our people have often in the past, sadly too often, been constrained, been forced to be behind ghetto walls or to be in their homes. But it won't be that way always. We are celebrating freedom. And part of that freedom will be one day to move through society and feel safe. But for now, we're doing the prudent thing, the socially and morally responsible thing. We're staying home. We're self-isolating. We're washing our hands. We are doing everything we can to stop this societal plague from harming, from killing more people. So tonight we celebrate. We celebrate with all the generations. We celebrate our history. And we're going to begin with a song number 4. Now let me tell you how you get to song number 4. If you've downloaded the Haggadah already, look past page 160. You'll find some song sheets there. Or if you've printed out the Haggadah, same thing. This is the Reconstructionist Haggadah edited by us. Instead of 160 pages, it's down to about 25 pages. It follows sequentially, but it doesn't follow page 1, 2, 3. We've skipped a good deal in order to be able to have a Seder that's meaningful and manageable. But now, with the new special songs, the modern Pesach songs, go to the back of the Haggadah after page 160, and then look for song number 4, our Passover Thanks.
Please join in with us. Cleaning and cooking and so many dishes. Out with the chametz, no pasta, no knishes. Fish that's gefiltered, horseradish that stinks. These are a few of our Passover things. Matzah and karpas and chopped up charoset. Schenkpans and kiddush and Yiddish neurosis. Tante who kvetches and uncle who sings. These are a few of our Passover things. When the plague strikes, when the lies spike, when we're feeling sad, we simply remember our Passover things, and then we don't feel so bad.
Matzah and maror and trouble with Pharaoh, famines and locusts and slaves with wheelbarrows, matzah balls floating and eggshells that cling. These are a few of our Passover things. When the plague strikes, when the lies bite, when we're feeling sad, we simply remember our Passover things, and then we don't feel so bad. Wow, you sang along beautifully. Or at least
and our dog too.
And our dog was singing along.
Heard Maya also.
Maya. So this holiday is called Zaman Cherutenu, the time of our freedom. Chag HaPesach, the holiday of Passover. Chag Aviv, the holiday of spring. And we wish each other a Zisen Pesach, in Yiddish a sweet Pesach, Chag Sameach, we say to each other. And we know that this holiday operates on so many levels. It's a holiday of newness, a new beginning. In the Torah, Pesach is actually the new year. The new year didn't become Rosh Hashanah in the fall till after the Babylonian exile. You know, pretty recently in our history, 2,500 years ago, after 586 BC. But this was the original New Year. So we begin with purity with not challah, but matzah. Matzah is simple bread, hasn't risen. Simple, pure bread, beginning anew. It's also the bread of poverty, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes, because we have to remember those who are still chained economically, those left on the margins, those suffering because no one is paying attention. But what does the Seder remind us of? We need to pay attention. So we're going to begin with the blessing over the Pesach candles. And if you've got your Haggadot in front of you, look at page 24, where we say, Lahadlik ner shel Yom Tov.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu להדליק נר של יום טוב.
Now we turn back to the song sheets in the back of the Haggadah, and there's a song number 6. We've got matzah. So let's all join together. You know the melody. You know the song.
All right. We've got matzah, we've got maror, we've got shank bones, who could ask for anything more? We've got manna in the desert, we've got Moses, who could ask for anything more? On Mount Pharaoh, he's behind us, who won't find us at his door? We've got freedom, we've got Torah, we've got our God, who could ask for anything more? Who could ask for anything more? I love that song.
Well, we turn to page 27 in our Haggadot. This is the order of the Seder. This is the kind of menu of the evening. And you just follow it down, Kadesh, Rachatz, Karpas, Yachatz. Online, you may have seen this, because if you see the second one, Urchatz, is about hand washing, and a few down from that, Rachza, that's about hand washing again. So twice in the traditional Seder, you wash your hands. But, Ruti, could you reach that for me? But in this Seder, we've got our Purell, and we're going to be washing our hands a lot. The Seder is to remind us of the Exodus. The Purell is to remind us about the importance of, this year especially, washing our hands. Throughout the Seder, you can't wash your hands too much. Okay, page 27, we learn the steps of the order of the Seder. We sing together.
Kadesh Urchatz, Karpas Yachatz, Magid Rachza, Motzi Matzah, Maror Korech, Shulchan Orech, Safun Barech, Hallel Nirtzah.
Now, we don't say a blessing for this hand washing. We just wash our hands. So we will, later on, wash our hands with a blessing on the Tilat Yadayim as we get closer to the meal. We turn to page 29, and we're going to read together the top section where it says Introduction to the Seder. We begin our journey through the Pesach Seder, our journey from slavery to freedom, through word and song, story and ritual, questions and more questions. We will relive the story of our ancestors' exodus and liberation. We tell the story not only to preserve the memory, we tell the story because Egypt is not only one physical place. The Exodus was not just one moment in time. We step into this story because it is both our story and the story of all people who have experienced oppression and liberation. When we recall the story of our oppression, We resolve to fight oppression everywhere. When we recall the story of our liberation, we renew our dream for freedom everywhere. Tonight, we raise our voices as individuals and members of this Seder community, committed to marching together out of Egypt. Now, this is Miriam's cup. There are two cups that sit on the Seder table. This is Miriam's cup. It's got water in it. And then there's Elijah's cup, which has wine in it. And later in the Seder, we're going to talk more about Elijah. But now I want to say something about Miriam. Miriam was the sister of Moses and Aaron. Miriam led the people across the sea with timbrels, singing, dancing, giving the people the joy of song as they crossed the sea for the liberation. Miriam was the one who found Pharaoh's daughter when she found baby Moses. She found Pharaoh's daughter. She protected Moses. She hid out in the bush. She reconnected Moses with his two mothers, so to speak, his birth mother and then Pharaoh's daughter who adopted him as Moses, according to the story, grew up in the palace. So Miriam was the connective tissue that protected Moses. Miriam, through song and dance, gave our people hope. But there were other great women, Shifra and Puah, the Hebrew midwives. And the question is, because the phrase is used, Hebrew midwives, were they the midwives to the Hebrews, and they were Egyptians? Or were they Jewish? Were they midwives who were Hebrew? And our ancestors said, the Rabbi said, they were valiant Jewish women, if they were Hebrews, brave and courageous like Miriam. Or if they were not Jewish, they were the first Chasidei Umot HaOlam, the first righteous rescuers, righteous non-Jews, who through the ages have saved our people. And we applaud Shifra and Puah for that. We applaud Miriam. And we applaud Pharaoh's daughter, who took the responsibility to raise Moses so that when he left the palace, because he couldn't stand the injustice. Yes, he loved the privilege of being in the palace, but something more deeply burned in him, a burning bush inside his heart, where he rejected the slavery that was inflicted upon his people, our people. And he came back and confronted those who had raised him. It's a dramatic story. And said, let my people go. So we turn in our Haggadot to page 32, where we join together, raise your Kiddush cups up, and we're going to read the short Kiddush, the first line, sing the first line of Kiddush together, and then follow it with Shechianu on page 33. First we join for Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
לחיים.
לחיים.
Now we're going to turn to page 37 as we take our karpas. So in our Seder plate, I'll tilt it, don't want anything to fall out of it, but there's our Seder plate. So we take the parsley. If you have a Seder plate, please join us. We dip it in the salt water, which we have here. We dip it, spring into salt water, symbol of new life into symbol of tears. We dip it and we join on 37 as we recite the blessing over the karpas together.
ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי האדמה.
Now we have 3 matzot here, 3 matzahs. And I'm going to reach in, and if you've got your Seder plate, please do the same. We're going to reach in and break the middle matzah. Pull this out. And you know that this middle matzah will become the afikomen that the children at the Seder can find afterwards during the meal, can find it, and of course get the appreciation of everybody at the table or everybody zooming in, and perhaps even a gift. So when we look at the matzah, we turn to page 41 in our Haggadot, and you see the first paragraph, halach ma'anya. Let's read the English together. No, just a word about halach ma'anya. It's an Aramaic, the vernacular at the time. Looks like Hebrew. It's a cognate language, Hebrew letters, but different words, related words. But halach ma'anya, why is it in the vernacular? So everybody understands it. So everybody knows at this point, one of the most important moments in the Seder, what we're saying. So let's read the paragraph below halach ma'anya together. This is the bread of our poverty, which our ancestors ate in the land of Egypt. Let all who are hungry come and eat. Let all who are in need come and celebrate Pesach. Now we are here. Next year in the land of Israel. Now we are slaves. Next year we will be free. Now we're going to continue on page 43. If you have not filled the second cup of wine, this is the point to do it. So you want to ask, how come we're filling the wine and then not drinking the second cup immediately?
Thank you.
And the reason is anticipation. I think it was Carole King who wrote that song, Anticipation, a long time ago. So the Seder is set up that way, especially to keep the interest of children. You do things, it's kind of a cliffhanger. You do something like fill the cup, and then the kids say, what's happening next? When's it going to come? When's the next cup of wine or grape juice? So we fill it now, and it just sits for a while we do a few other things. This is where kids really start. So if a lot of people are watching on Zoom, if a lot of people are not physically at your Seder, but spiritually at your Seder, pick someone who's young, but we're all going to join in. So maybe someone only knows the first question, or only knows in Hebrew, only knows in English, whatever. But we're all going to join in. Page 43.
מה נשתנה הלילה הזה מכל הלילות, מכל הלילות, שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים חמץ ומצה, חמץ ומצה. הלילה הזה כולו מצה. הלילה הזה כולו מצה, שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים שאר ירקות, שאר ירקות. הלילה הזה מרור, מרור. הלילה הזה מרור, שבכל הלילות אין אנו מטבילים אפילו פעם אחד, אפילו פעם אחד. הלילה הזה שתי פעמים, הלילה הזה שתי פעמים, שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים בין יושבין ובין מסובין, בין יושבין ובין מסובין. הלילה הזה, הלילה הזה, כולנו מסובין. הלילה הזה, הלילה הזה, כולנו מסובין.
Now let's read the questions in English right below. Why is this night different from all other nights? On all other nights we eat leavened or unleavened bread. Why on this night do we eat only matzah? On all other nights we eat various kinds of vegetables. Why on this night do we eat bitter herbs? On all other nights we need not dip our vegetables even once. Why on this night do we dip them twice? On all other nights we eat either sitting up or reclining. Why on this night do we eat reclining? So those are the four questions, but the rabbis created in the structure of the Haggadah, the rabbis of the Talmud a couple thousand years ago, had so many more questions, and they selected these four. And the kids asked them, again, as part of the learning experience, because we're supposed to retell the story to generation after generation, but also to re-experience the story. A Seder where we don't break some chains, psychological chains, where we don't break chains of ourselves or others, is not really the kind of Seder that the rabbis envisioned. They felt you've got to, during the course of the Seder, have a little private, quiet, inside time to think about what chains are holding you back, what psychological or spiritual chains. What are you afraid to do? Break those chains. So this night is different because we set it aside to clean the chametz out of ourselves too. Not just the leaven out of the kitchen, not the chametz out of the kitchen, but the chametz that's inside of us. So why do we eat matzah? I'll give you a second to ask others at the table. Why do we eat matzah? Because, according to the story, when the Israelites left, they had only 18 minutes to bake the matzah, to bake the unleavened bread. And they quickly baked it, and out they went. Because when you have a little window of opportunity, go from slavery to freedom, you move fast. Why do we eat bitter herbs? Take a minute to think about it. Ask people around the table. Because the maror sadly reminds us of the bitterness of slavery. You know, it's easy to set up a holiday that's all joy and light and where you only remember the good stuff. But this Seder that was created by the rabbis exists on two levels. One level is exaltation. We're celebrating our freedom. And the other level is deprivation. And they, you can see it as levels or like a DNA spiral intertwining. We're remembering both, celebrating the freedom, but not forgetting the deprivation. If we forget the deprivation that we experienced, then we are going to be passive in the face of deprivation that other people are suffering. We eat the bitter herbs, not because our lives are bitter. Our lives are hardly bitter at all. Yes, there are tough times like now, but we're reminded of the bitterness that exists all over the world because there are 27 million people still enslaved today.
Maya.
So why on this night do we dip twice? Well, we just dipped once, the spring parsley into the salt, the tears that we shed as slaves. But we're going to dip again. When we dip time to answer, we're going to pause. The maror, the bitter herbs, into the sweet mixture, charoset. A little later in the Seder, right before the meal, when we make that Hillel sandwich, we're going to taste the matzah, the maror, and the charoset together. That is a very yummy sandwich. And why do we recline when we eat? Because reclining in ancient times was a sign of freedom. Do we still have that pillow here? Is it still here? Oh, so this is our Seder pillow. We always have this at the Seder. And what is it? So it says on the front, Pesach, and then on the back it says, you can lean on me. So I think I will. Or Ruti, do you want to lean on?
Sure.
Ruti's going to lean on it first. Okay. So now we're going to turn in our Haggadot to page 46. At the bottom of the page, Avadim Hayinu. We were slaves, now we are free.
Avadim hayinu, hayinu, ata b'nei chorin, b'nei chorin. Avadim hayinu, ata b'nei chorin. Avadim hayinu, ata b'nei chorin, b'nei chorin. Ata b'nei chorin, b'nei chorin.
We turn to page 49. This is the story of the 4 children. Now in Sextus Haggadot, it's the 4 sons. But you know, we're talking about the 4 children. So, let's read together. Page 49. 4 times the Torah speaks about children in connection with the telling of the Exodus story. But nothing is said about the character of these children. Rabbinic Midrash viewed these passages not as simple repetitions, but as representing different types of children. There are 4 verses in the Torah that imply 4 types of children. One who is wise, one who is wicked, one who is simple, and one who does not know enough to ask. Now, those 4 typologies do not describe children only. They describe us as adults as well. Now, here's the reality. We're never one type. In certain situations, we're wise. In others, we're resentful and wicked and angry. Sometimes we just don't really understand something. We ask in a pure way. And sometimes we're so far removed from understanding we don't even know how to begin to ask questions. So rather than seeing any of these children to be praised one over the other, we should look within ourselves and remember how we represent all of these children. Now, we're going to continue. Actually, I think we should do a song.
Yes.
Okay? I love song number 7. Matzah Ball Tonight. So if you're a fan of Stephen Sondheim, you will enjoy this song. And if you're not, you'll just sing along. Matzah Ball Tonight.
You want your page?
Song number 7.
Something historic, something caloric, something for everyone, a matzah ball tonight. Tales that are thrilling, food that is filling. Something for everyone, a matzah ball tonight. Waters that part, great pyramids, bring on the yentas, kvetches and kids. Something neurotic, something melodic, singing of Hebrew taking flight. Matzah bright tomorrow, matzah balls tonight. Some yada yada from the Haggadah. Something for everyone, a matzah ball tonight. So much to question, such indigestion. Something for everyone, a matzah ball tonight. Hide your brioche, throw out your bread. Eat macaroons and matzah instead. Something observant, festive and fervent. Praise Adonai with all your might. Matzah bright tomorrow, matzah balls tonight. Something enduring, see grandpa snoring. Something for everyone, a matzah ball tonight. Motzi and Kiddush, Hebrew and Yiddish. Something for everyone, a matzah ball tonight. Praise to be prayed, songs to be sung. Family and friends, the old and the young. Something so Jewish, so Dianoish. Thank God it all turned out alright. Matzah bright tomorrow, matzah balls tonight.
Oh, that was great. So, we're going to turn to page 61. Now, this part of the Seder is actually sad, because part of relishing the privilege of freedom and also looking around to see those who don't have it are also to recognize that very unfortunately some people throughout history and even today have been collateral damage. They really didn't deserve what happened to them. We are glad that we're free. We are glad that the Egyptians didn't catch up to us and drag us back into Egypt when Pharaoh changed his mind after he let us go, and then he sent his charioteers after us. But on page 61, we turn to the 10 plagues. We diminish our joy. Wine is a symbol of joy in our tradition, but we diminish our joy with the recitation of the plagues, because we realize that others suffered even though they were our enemies. So we rejoice in our freedom, but we recognize that so many people had to suffer, and very often undeserving people suffer when there's an evil Pharaoh in charge. So we take our pinkies and we're going to put in our pinky as we say each drop, echoing the Cantor. But here's something very important. Do not be a pinky licker, because a lot of people have learned at the Seder, after the 10th plague, to lick their finger to taste the sweet wine. We don't do that. Traditionally, again, we're depriving ourselves of joy. So after the 10th drop, and you can take each drop and put it on the corner of your plate, but after the 10th drop, just put it on the plate. Don't lick it off your fingers. Stay in this sad moment of radical empathy for the enemy. Because over time, you know, enemies can sign peace treaties and become friends. The world can change. So
please repeat after me.
Dam Tzfardea Kinim Arov Dever Shechin Barad Arbe Choshech Makat Bechorot. Now we turn to Dayenu,
our favorite song
page
of all
69.
time.
Everybody's favorite Pesach song. And you'll see the transliteration at the bottom. Those are the verses that we're going to be doing. Dayenu says, it would have been enough. Just one blessing, just one bit of freedom. It would have been enough. But we have so many blessings, one after the other. So many gifts of freedom. So many gifts of liberation. We join in singing, it would have been enough for us. Dayenu.
Ilo hotzianu mimitzrayim, hotzianu mimitzrayim, dayenu. Everyone! Dayenu, 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 dayenu. Ilu natan lanu et ha-Shabbat, natan lanu et ha-Shabbat, dayenu, 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 dayenu. Ilu natan lanu et ha-Torah, natan lanu et ha-Torah, dayenu. Everyone! Dayenu, 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 dayenu.
Oh, love that song.
Yes.
Page 77, we pick up that second cup of grape juice or wine, and we join together for Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. L'chaim.
Now we come to Rachza. Where's that Purell?
Here it is.
Here it is. So we're going to wash our hands, and then we're going to say the blessing.
On what page?
79.
79.
In 79, we're going to wash our hands. And you can see in the middle of the page, the Untitled Yadayim blessing. We join together.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kideshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al netilat yadayim.
Now, we turn to page 81, and I'm going to lift up the matzot here. So I'm going to get a piece I'm going to hide later during the meal as the afikomen. So here we have all the matzot together, and we turn to page 81, and there are two blessings. You can see at the top of the page, Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, the usual blessing over bread, and then below it, Al achilat matzah, the special Pesach blessing for bread, and then the modern egalitarian blessing, Nivarech et Ruach HaOlam, slightly different than what we do at the synagogue for Shabbat. That's the egalitarian bread blessing. So, let's join together in those three blessings.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kideshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al achilat matzah. Nevarech et ruach haolam hamotziah lechem min haaretz. Yep.
I love it. I love matzah.
Want to do some songs?
We turn to page 83, and we're going to take the maror, and we're going to dip it in the charoset. So, some of you have...
I can show it to you. Our charoset.
So here is the maror, the bitter herbs, and we're going to dip it in the charoset. Ruti, do you want to do that too?
Yeah.
So we'll do that. So, in the middle of page 83, you'll see the blessing, Al Achilat Maror. Now, this mixes the bitter and the sweet. That is a metaphor for life. Sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down, but really this is what life is about, the bitter and the sweet. And I would say put a little extra charoset over the maror.
I agree.
Because that's the truth about our lives. They're more sweet than bitter, even in difficult times. So, Baruch
atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kideshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al achilat maror. Very spicy. Should have told you that before. Very strong.
I think we should have had even more charoset. And now we're going to make the Hillel sandwich. So take some matzah, and here we go. So, you know, the Earl of Sandwich did not create the sandwich. You might have learned that in school, right? It was Hillel who created, the rabbi a couple thousand years ago, who mixed these elements of the bitter and the sweet and the original Pesach sacrifice. By the way, on some Seder plates, there are shank bones. But if you're a vegetarian, or you just want to honor vegetarians, I'm going to pick this up with my finger. It's okay. Instead of the shank bone, we have a beet. And you're allowed by Jewish tradition to have a beet.
Oh, we forgot the orange. I'm going to go get it.
Oh, okay.
I'll be right back.
We're going to put an orange on the Seder table. See, do you know the story of the orange on the Seder table? Somebody, a long time ago, several decades ago, was very sexist. And when he saw a woman, Jewish scholar, who was talking about the importance of egalitarianism in Jewish life, and said women should be rabbis and cantors, he said, a woman belongs on the pulpit like an orange belongs on a Seder plate.
And
guess
the orange
what?
belongs.
The
on
orange
the Seder
has
plate.
won. And we remember the orange as the sense of inclusivity for women and men equally in Jewish life, for the LGBTQ community, for anyone who has felt that the doors and the windows to synagogues and the Jewish community were not open. Today, in liberal Judaism, they are open. And it's our job to keep them open and to let everybody know they're open, to welcome people in, people who marry into our tradition, people who decide to convert or don't convert, people of all ages and all levels of education and affluence. The Jewish community needs to be a completely open and inclusive Jewish community, embracing everyone, whatever their background, whatever their learning was before they came to us. We say, as in Halach Ma'anya, all are welcome. All are invited to the Seder and to Jewish life. There is no blessing for the Hillel sandwich. Let's just enjoy it. Now the meal is about to be served, but I think, look around at your Seder plate. If you wish, you can turn off the Seder now, because we're going to pause for a little while and come back after the meal. B'te'avon.
B'te'avon.
Hope you enjoyed the meal. I bet it was terrific. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Now, the last part of the Seder is about, 10, 12 minutes long, but Seders don't end with the meal. They end with 2 more cups of wine and some singing. And of course, when our Seder is over, sing as many songs as you want, schmooze as much as you want. Let's return to the theme of the Seder, page 87. And we're going to read together this reading from Michael Walzer, a reminder of why we sit at Seder tables and retell and re-experience the story. So pharaonic oppression, deliverance, Sinai and Canaan are still with us. Powerful memories shaping our perceptions of the political world. The door of hope is still open. Things are not what they might be, even when what they might be isn't totally different from what they are. We still believe, or many of us do, what the Exodus first taught, or what it has commonly been taken to teach, about the meaning and possibility of politics and about its proper form. First, that wherever you live, it is probably Egypt. Second, that there is a better place, a world more attractive, a promised land. And third, that the way to the land is through the wilderness. There is no way to get from here to there except by joining together and marching. We join for a song that you all know, Let My People Go.
When Israel was in Egypt land, let my people go. Oppressed so hard they could not stand, let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. As Israel stood by the waterside, let my people go. By God's command it did divide, let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people
Now we're going to continue with a few more songs because the latter part of the Seder is about singing. Traditionally, there's songs like Chad Gadya, but we're going to do modern songs that you won't find in most Haggadot, but ones that have become popular in recent years. So the next one is song number 1 on your song sheets. Remember, after page 160 in your Xerox Haggadot, Web of Women, reminding us of those important women we talked about early in the Seder.
Long ago on Egyptian soil, the Hebrew children multiply, the Hebrew children toil. Nasty Pharaoh, he made a lot of noise. He told Shifra and Puah to kill the baby boys. It was a web of women, a web of women that kept the Hebrew children alive. He was a web of women, a web of women that helped the Hebrew children to survive. Now Shifra and Puah ignored Pharaoh's law. They wore loving midwives, they knew right from wrong. Pharaoh was a madman, a monster through and through. But women have the power to do what they must do. It was a web of women, a web of women that kept the Hebrew children alive. It was a web of women, a web of women that helped the Hebrew children to survive. The Hebrew women in those dark years just kept having babies. They pushed back their fears. Yocheved had a baby, Moshe was his name, and he would lead his people to freedom once again. He was a web of women, a web of women that kept the Hebrew children alive. It was a web of women, a web of women that helped the Hebrew children to survive. Yocheved had a baby, Moshe was his name. Miriam, his sister, watched them all the same, till Pharaoh's kindly daughter rescued him so brave. Without these holy women, we might still be slaves. It was a web of women, a web of women that kept the Hebrew children alive. It was a web of women, a web of women that helped the Hebrew children to survive. It was a web of women, a web of women that kept the Hebrew children alive. It was a web of women, a web of women that helped the Hebrew children to survive.
Now, would you like more horseradish, more maror?
No, thank
You've had
you.
enough? Okay.
Had enough.
But there's a song about maror. It's found on song number 5. Buy me some charain. That's what maror is.
I need some charain and grind it again. I just can't abstain, although I try. I'll say it again. If I can't attain my fill of the rain, I think I'll die. Don't give me ketchup because I don't go for rainbow. I want something that tickles up my nose, my run. Again I'll explain. I love my charain, so bounce it again and let her cry. La la la
You know, all those silly songs at the end of the Haggadah that were written in rabbinic times, Middle Ages, and later were the festive side. Remember before I talked about exaltation and deprivation? As we move further through the Seder, we're feeling that exaltation building. Now we're up to the third cup. Let's pick it up.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen chayim.
Now we want to turn to song number 3. This is a song, of course, that we frequently do on Shabbat, a song of healing. We're afraid. There's no way to get around that. We're afraid of COVID-19. And we also know people who are ill. Some of them are people we actually know personally, but we certainly know in our society there are so many people. The numbers are staggering. And of course, the sad fact is so much of this could have been slowed down. It couldn't have been preventable. But had we and other people in other countries of the world be quicker to deal with coronavirus, the mortality rate and the infection rate would both have drastically gone down. So we need to heal from our fear. We need to comfort those around us who are afraid. And we have to think of all those people who are in danger. And we thank them for self-quarantining so that nobody else gets infected. And we have to think of the health professionals. These are heroes in our society. Doctors and nurses and technicians, people who drive ambulances, EMTs. These are heroes. They're making sure that the mortality rate stays as low as possible, even though it will sadly be shocking. This is a modern day plague. We think of those, we want to comfort them, and we want to comfort ourselves. Song number 3, Misha Beirach. We fill the 4th cup of wine up. This will be the concluding cup of wine, but we're not drinking it yet. Again, anticipation. We turn to page 122 in our Haggadot. We open up the door, so you'll excuse me for a moment. I'm going to open up the door for Elijah. Be back in a moment. Now, this is a tradition that has a story of deprivation, and courage simultaneously. A lot of you know the story. Some of you do not. Sadly, on our Freedom Night in the Middle Ages, on Pesach, when we talked about being free, we are free. Avadim hayinu, we were slaves. Ata b'nei chorin, we are free. The reality was we weren't free. We were behind ghetto walls. We were at the mercy of the political and religious leaders who were not Jewish, who surrounded us. And there was a terrible rumor, story, absurd and insane about the Jews, the blood libel. And it was said by others about the Jews that they used the blood of Christian children to make matzah. And so the authorities forced the Jews to leave their doors open on Seder night so that anybody could wander in and check that the Jews were not doing that to Christian children. And sadly, in the Muslim world, the same story about Muslim children is too often been told and being told today. So the doors had to be open. But how could Jewish parents say to their children on this night of freedom that we weren't really free? So they began the tradition of Elijah. Now, Elijah is known in Jewish tradition as the prophet who never died. He's the prophet that's at every baby naming, at Havdalah services every Saturday night as we leave Shabbat. He's the prophet that will, when he shows up, Mashiach, Tzeit, Messianic times will be around the corner. So we open the door to Elijah as a way of saying, one day the world will be better. One day, anti-Semitism and racism, xenophobia, homophobia, all the hatreds of immigrants, that those phobias and those hatreds will no longer exist. Opening the door for Elijah is a way of saying we believe in redemption. We believe that people can change. But we especially say to our children, as our ancestors did, this is not the world that we have, the world today. And this is not the world that we want. But we, individually and together, can bring Mashiach Tzeit. We can do the work of Tikkun Olam. We can break the pattern. We can flatten the curve of hatred. We can change the world. So as we open our doors and invite Elijah in to drink from the Elijah's cup, we welcome in a new world. And we sing Eliyahu Hanavi, found on page 122, welcoming in the prophet who reminds us that redemption, Mashiach Tzeit, a better world, Tikkun Olam, all of those mitzvot are in our hands. Eliyahu Hanavi.
Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishvi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Hagiladi, Limeirad Yameinu, Yavo Eleinu, Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben David, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishvi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Hagiladi.
Now we turn to the last moments of our Seder. We think of all that we've accomplished and all that we've taught, all that we've passed on, all the hopes and the dreams that we have. Now that our Seder is completed, the children have found the Afikomen, and not only have they been rewarded, we've been rewarded by seeing these Kinderlach around the table absorbing Judaism, whether it's around the physical table or the Zoom table, or talking to them on the phone. We're ensuring the future. On this night, we glimpse the future through them. So they are rewarded and we are rewarded. We join together for the fourth cup of wine.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri agafe.
L'chaim. And we turn to page 144 for the last words of our Seder. Next year in Jerusalem, next year in a city of peace for all of its inhabitants, of all religions, of all ethnicities, Jews and Arabs, Jews, Muslims, and Christians, all those who yearn for peace, and all those who yearn for peace in the world. We say next year in Jerusalem, some people who are sitting around tables in the diaspora will be in Jerusalem next year, but most of us won't. The Shana Haba Yerushalayim is a way of saying, next year, may the world be a better place. And may we, in this coming year, make the world a better place. We join together.
Leshana Haba. That has a movement. Just I want to show you. First we do Leshana Haba, Leshana Haba, Leshana Haba, B'Yerushalayim. So join in with me. Leshana Haba, Leshana Haba, Leshana Haba, B'Yerushalayim. Leshana Haba, Leshana Haba, Leshana Haba, B'Yerushalayim. Leshana Haba, Leshana Haba, B'Yerushalayim. Leshana Haba, Leshana Haba, B'Yerushalayim. Leshana Haba, Leshana Haba, Leshana Haba, B'Yerushalayim. Leshana Haba, Leshana Haba, Leshana Haba, B'Yerushalayim.
Thanks for sharing your Seder with us. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach. Ya la 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 la. Chag Sameach. Chag Sameach. Ya la 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 la. Shir, 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 shir. Chag Sameach. Ya la 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 la. Shir, 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 shir. Chag Sameach. Ya la 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 la. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.